It's absolutely incredible what you can do with AI these days. And of course, as I continue to navigate this market and of course build dashboards and experience in terms of how to deploy AI, check out the DXB community's Discord, in particularly the education sector, which has a significant AI information. And I'm talking about Clawbot. I'm talking about things that really matter for your long-term skills anyway, regardless of whether you're going to deploy it for crypto. I happen to deploy this beautiful chart you're seeing with macro, of course, economic context, with, you know, the current funds rate, the CPI. I pull all of this data together using AI, which is absolutely incredible. So, of course, I want every single person who watches my channel to learn the power of AI. And in order to do so, I'd like you to check some of the free courses that I've posted in the Discord. So welcome back to the channel, guys. You know, it's a bear market where no news moves the market. Last week we saw, or a couple of days ago, a massive news from Blackrock, right? Blackrock coming into Uniswap. This is a huge deal. Of course, since then, the market's been influenced by the CPI data, and we're going to look at exactly what happened there. Of course, some of these historic low prices, it seems to me the altcoins have pretty much hit the bottom. But let's start off here. This is what we saw. Uniswap, Securitize, of course, to unlock DeFi liquidity for BlackRock's BUIDL fund. This was a massive news. And typically, ultimately, the Uniswap price reacted 30%. And right afterwards, it crashed straight back down again, which is absolutely incredible. Okay? Pay attention to stuff like that, because that tells you more or less where the psychology is. I do happen to think a lot of altcoins have hit their market lows, but this is big. This is huge for Uniswap, for Ethereum, for things like Uniswap as well. Having said that, prices are yo-yoing at the moment. So let's have a look at some of our key watch list, okay? And whether they've come to a significant low enough for you to be interested. This is Toshi, and it has hit a low of 0.1535, right? You can see it right there a couple of days ago. Now, of course, we'll talk about whether this is an extension of a bear market or whether this is the start of a reversal. Either way, you're allocated, right? You hold enough coins, you have enough exposure to the market. And through fear, I mean, if you listen, I've put some limit orders in. Mostly my sole focus was on Tau, and those have been hit. But look at the bounce that it had from those lows, right? So if you look at Bittensor Tau, long time, okay? So I said, guys, historical demands and DCA. So what we had is a hit, a bounce, hit this level 3 times, bounce, hit this level again 3-4 times, bounce again significantly, and we've come back in and dropped out of it a little bit. And we've demolished the October candle, which was over here. But then if you look at the DCA prices, so far we've accumulated, not a lot, you know, but we've accumulated on here and on here and on here and on here. So altogether, I picked up about 20 additional Tau. And my strategy is the same. If we do break down again, of course, I have orders that trigger below 130 and below. Then, of course, generational entry if we do go all the way down to a historical level. But you see what I'm doing here? I'm staggering orders based on their historical levels and, of course, the October manipulation candle. A lot of projects are beneath this. Stuff like Sui is nowhere near it. And that's where Toshi comes in, right? Who's been buying Toshi mainly, according to Nansen data, is mostly exchanges. I did post this in the in the VIP Discord. Let me go to the Discord. If you look at the VIP Discord here, I said, who's buying Toshi? Because we need to know, right? Sometimes we just need to know who the hell's in these markets, because most people, unfortunately, most people don't actually have any access to data like this. So what we have here is Toshi's exchange flows. Consistent net inflows to exchanges through the week. So this was last week. So this is pre-CPI data. And you have funds, you have capital funds that hold Toshi, right? LVT Capital is one of them. Virtually no smart money or funds participation in Toshi for now. However, exchanges, and in terms of what they were doing, it looks something like this. Coinbase, 2.2 billion accumulating, Bybit accumulating, Crypto.com accumulating, Gate and Mexi distributing, meaning that they are selling. And then if you look at further breakdown of these, concentration risk, of course, this wallet never sells Toshi, but it's something that you need to know. These are the kind of key insights that we need in the market. Because honestly, even if you look at price performance here, would we be, now that the economic situation's a bit more clear, is this the bottom for many altcoins? They look like they've bottomed out. However, you know the risk. You are holding altcoins. You are dealing with altcoins. And as such, it's very important for you to be able to understand the bigger picture. So full CPI breakdown. And it's funny because Trueflation got this spot on. So what to look out for, we gave an immediate kind of expectation. So this is kind of all the stuff pre. So this is what you needed to know going into the CPI. A new framework that differs the way we did over the last 5 years, which has to allow inflation to run a little hot over time, hitting an average rate of 2%. Any inflation rise will be digested in the short term. Tariff increases instead of persistent. All banking forecasts from Citadel, UBS, and others expect higher core inflation. So this is the reason why the market bounced, right? So in summary, CPI a lower forecast below the prior month, bullish for equities, bearish for DXY, CPI for above, and then we've got obviously the result, right? It was below. So good CPI, caution, yes. Here's a full breakdown, of course. And we go into this. Expectation 2.5, Trueflation 2.4, which is the actual. And of course, Trueflation then saying you call it bullish for markets and we call it a validation for real data. Now, while everyone waited, Trueflation was already tracking the cool down. No lag, no guessing. Of course, bullish for transparency. I agree. Trueflation correctly did predict this, or predictive markets like Kelshi. Okay. However, CPI year on year confirms a deflationary, in my opinion, trend and should remain intact, hopefully. Cooling data provides the necessary macro cushion for the 484 points liquidity inflow target. Stability in the DXY is no longer a hope. It's a fundamental certainty. We are nearing the 2% Fed target. And according to Kelshi, and this was in my report yesterday for those of you who read, we're likely to get rate cuts too, not confirmed, of course. We don't want to take a decision based on hopium. The economy is headed in the right direction in the short term, especially with the positive labor numbers. However, there's a caveat there because they need a massive revision. The state of the economy is positively trading towards the good side in most metrics. However, we're not fully out of the waters just yet. It's going to be a few more months before the BLS shelters component catches up to reality. And that's something you need to consider. US Bureau on, of course, labor statistics has an antiquated methodology in the calculation of key economic indicators. Of course, it penalizes the American people, often leads to bad Fed moves. because it's a lagging data, right? They're always looking at their rear view mirrors. Whole approach of BLS needs to be changed. Of course, we need to look forward we need data to be looking forward to make important financial policy. Fed has been wrong more times than it has been right. So what's the caution? So a marginal beat, yes, it was. Of course, we've got to celebrate that. And that's why potentially the market could set more traps. Does not signal a victory over inflation. Of course, and things could remain sticky. Market often overreacts to initial print. Of course, ignoring the 2.4 reading still keeps the Fed in restrictive posture for longer. This is the kind of information you need. Smash a like, by the way, because this is key. Of course, true bullishness requires a structural decline in the shelter component, not just a favorable comparison against the high base effects of the previous year. For now, I'm happy with the direction, absolutely. And if we look at many altcoins, we have got this support and we have got this historical level. So something has to give, right? We are looking good. Of course, it's been on a downtrend for a while, but if we can hit the, tap this green, the sooner we do that, the better the markets will look overall, in my opinion. So that was a pretty big, long, detailed macro report in our Discord. So check that out if you're in there. If you're too lazy to read it, just copy it and get AI to read it for you. But this is on the back of pretty much a massive day for me of a consistent, of course, posting in there in terms of what's going into with particular projects like Beam, like Hyperliquid, Pengu, Toshi, you name it. All the projects that we track at the DXB community, and that's why I'm building a dashboard like this. There's, of course, key signals. Standard Chartered downgraded BTC to 100K target. Wants 50K possible before recovery. Bullish. Goldman Sachs, of course. Triples IBIT position, of course. And institutional accumulation during extreme fear. CPI was a definite mega factor. And, of course, top 3 to 5 capitulation events in BTC history below 365-day moving average since March 2022. Of course, ETF BTC holds 1.39 million, only 6% peak despite 50% price drawdown. On the cost basis, the average right now stands around $84,000. And in terms of other news, X is launching a timeline trading. Brazil's strategic Bitcoin reserve bill is also happening. Grayscale files for Aave ETF. Isn't it just wonderful? Bitcoin dominance here, 59.4%. Of course, Bitcoin price here with the February 6th low. And right now, price, confirming hopefully a strong finish above $70,000 is needed. 69 is the watershed moment. So this is why I think, look, at the end of the day, AI is important. I'm going to try and get as many people here in the channel to be able to learn how to deploy and use AI, because it's going to change your life. It's going to be way, way better. This whole DXB macro dashboard for me is absolutely ridiculous. We shall update more and more of these. But listen, if you caught some of these lows, great. If you haven't, well, prices are still cheap, right? If you have long-term conviction in crypto, it's nice to see, say, closing below. Look, October candle, say, below it. Of course, it's got to come up now and get above these key levels like 10, 14, 16 cents to flip bullish. Kaspa has been doing well. Monad's has been trying to recover. And this is near protocol coming all the way down to about 85 cents, clearing out all its liquidity. $9 here is a historic, some of the lowest prices since 2022 for Chainlink. So you got to be neutral. You got to be cold. You got to be calm. You got to be cool. You got to be collected. And of course, you've got to have ice in your veins to survive in these markets. Trade what you can when the prices are good. Consolidate into your long-term beliefs. And of course, never hold anything for too long, because that is the ultimate killer in these markets. All right. Lots more. Enjoy the green candles. And of course, we look forward to seeing you again on the next show. And let me know what you've been accumulating. You know, let me know if you've been buying, if you've been DCAing down, if you've got orders that are yet to hit. Okay. But never trust these markets. I'm telling you now, never trust these markets. You know, for every good sentiment or every good price movement, there's something that crashes the markets anyway. But local bottoms could be in. One other chart you need to be aware of is the ETH BTC chart. Okay, ETH BTC has to show a significant reversal here. What we have is a typical low range in this blue line here. Will we test that? Will we come in between? At the moment, ETH BTC starting to absolutely take off here. So that's a pretty decent, I wouldn't say, I mean, taking off is an understatement, but that is a level that I would watch as the first kind of turnaround of ETH BTC chart on the daily. Okay. Let's get to the weekly. Hopefully that will be it, you know, but the daily so far, we need to see more momentum, of course. And we need to see Bitcoin or Ethereum outperform Bitcoin for the rest of the year. But anyway, guys, I'll be here to cover all eventualities. Have a lovely, lovely day, and I'll catch you on the next one.